Good morning everybody, it's Amy from Making Space. I hope you had a lovely weekend. I've got a really fun crafty activity for you all to join in with today. I don't know about you, but we watched the Great British Sewing Bee last week and it totally inspired me to do a sewing activity today. So I'm going to talk you through what we're going to make and then the materials, and then we'll get started. So today we're going to be making these lovely little felt lavender bags. They can be used for a variety of different things. So you can stuff them with lavender so they smell really nice to hang in your wardrobe or around the home. You could also use them as pin cushions, normal decoration. It's completely up to you, but there's a really nice sort of back design here. Obviously a little kind of folky bird with loads of sort of decorative stitching on, and a work in progress one here, a little kind of initial one. Great for presents for people as well. They don't weigh much at all, so if you want to make something and send it in the post to someone that you're thinking of, a really nice idea. So that's what we're going to be making. Let me talk you through what we're going to need. Let's move these out of the way. So the material that I'm going to be using today is felt. Felt's really lovely because it cuts really nicely. You can get some really nice, let's show you this one, precise shapes from it, and it doesn't fray, which is great because you don't have to worry about the edges fraying along the edge here as well, which is really lovely. So if you've got felt, that's great. I will put a link online as well, so if you've not got some and you want to buy some, you can get some from Amazon. If you don't want to use that and you want to use what you've got at home, you can use plain material. You'll just have to be more mindful of your edges. But yeah, ideally use felt. So other things you're going to need, you might need a pen and a pencil. You're going to need some fabric scissors. I'd recommend using some that are quite small and quite sharp. So again, if you're a young person doing this, you might want to grab an adult to help. You might need a bit of plain paper to help make some templates. If you've got some offcuts of ribbon, that's great if you want to make one that's a hung one like this. But if you've not got any, don't panic, you can make little loops just using your embroidery thread. Then you're going to need some embroidery threads. I've just got a little mix here of ones that I've got kind of left lying around. And then of course you're going to need a needle. So you're going to want one that's quite sharp, but also has got quite a nice big eye for you to sort of fit the embroidery threads through. This is a great activity to use up all your little offcuts of kind of felt as well, either to cut shapes from the bigger bits, or you can cut up the smaller bits and offcuts of embroidery threads to kind of use as the stuffing. But you might also want some additional stuffing as well. So this is just wadding material. It's the kind of thing that you get inside a cushion or a soft toy. If you've got some, great. If not, you can, like I said, use cut up bits of fabric as well. But if you can get your hands on some of this, it's really great and makes for a really nice soft toy or hanging decoration. So I think that's everything. So let's clear some space and then we can get started. Okay, so to start, you're going to want to think about your design. Now, you might want to grab your bit of paper and pencil and come up with a design first, figure out the size, make a template, cut that out. If you were doing that, make sure you're thinking of the size of the finished thing. You know, you don't want it too small. You can see in comparison to my hands, these are quite nice sort of sizes, but you don't want them too big either. So think about the size. Once you're happy you've got that, you can use paper, like I said, to cut out a template, and you can use that to trace around. So I'll do you a quick demo of that. And see, oh, I've not got paper scissors, so I won't do that because I don't want to use my fabric scissors. But if you imagine, if you place your paper shape on the top here, you would then trace around it using a pen, a marker, a bit of chalk, and then use your fabric scissors to cut it out. I would recommend if you're doing that, do one and then trace it and do another one. Obviously, you can use the same colour on both sides, or you might want to do a different colour on both sides. Now, here's some shapes that I've already cut out. Now, I didn't use a template for these. I just kind of freestyled. And to get them the same, I got my bit of felt, folded it in half, and then I cut two at a time. Now, if you're not confident with your cutting or think you might make a mistake, do one first, and then use that as your template to cut your other one, okay? Do what you feel comfortable with. But like I said, I freestyled mine and I'm quite happy with those. Don't forget, you can always just go over and kind of neaten them up afterwards. You know, cut off any loose ends, make them nice and even. Okay, so once you've got your shape, you now need to think about your design that's going to go on your shape. Now you can again do a design on one side or both, completely up to you. So as I mentioned, it's a great chance to use up your offcuts. So you can see I've got a little heart there. Let's use that. And then we're going to do another initial one because I think they're quite nice to make them kind of personalised for people. So again, you can use your use a bit of paper and pencil if you want to make a template, or if you feel confident, just cut it straight out. So then you can play about with the composition. Oh, I've lost the little heart. Where did that go? You can probably see it on the camera. Ah, there it is. It's in my scrap pile. Play about with the composition till you're happy with where it's going to go. You want to leave a bit of a gap around the edge. Don't get things too close to the edge because you're going to have to stitch it together. So make sure it's kind of in the middle. Okay, now once you're happy with your design, it's now time to sort of sew these bits on. So you're going to want to grab some of your embroidery thread. I'm going to start with this nice sort of peach colour. Make sure you've got a long enough length. You don't really want to run out halfway through, ideally. So cut off a length. And then what you're going to want to do is tie a knot in one end. So to tie a knot, I always wrap it around my finger, then roll it off my finger and pull the knot down. And that creates a little knot on the end. With the other end, I always wet the embroidery thread between my lips to make it a little bit easier to thread. Camera. And then thread it through. Okay, so I'm going to move the heart off because I'm going to start with the L, and you can stitch it on in a variety of ways. There's so many different creative stitches that you can do. Blanket stitch, you can do these little French knots, but you know, if you've not done it before, start simple. A simple running stitch like this is really effective. So if it's your first try doing something like this, don't push yourself too far. Try something you feel comfortable with, and you've done it a few times, you can get a little bit more sort of adventurous. So for this one, I'm just going to do a really simple stitch around the edge. So make sure your knot's on the back, and just use, I'm using my thumb to just hold it in place, but you can, if you prefer, you can use a pin to hold it together if you find that easier. Completely up to you. Okay, so I've just done one little stitch, and then we're going to come tiny bit up and repeat the process. Okay, now I'm making this one quite simple because it's just a demonstration. I don't want to take too long. When you're doing your stitching, try and make sure it's kind of even lengths and even spacings. That's all the kind of little things that help make it look a bit more professional. But likewise, if it's the first time you've done it, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, these skills take practice. And what's nice is that, you know, having some spare time to kind of perfect these skills is quite lovely. So you can see it's really easy to do. The felt's really nice to sew. It's not difficult. But you do want a sharp needle. You don't want one that's blunt, because that will make things a little bit trickier for you. Ooh, caught around my ring there. That's clever. Sewing's a really nice mindful activity. If you don't, don't put too much stress on yourself. Take your time, enjoy the process, and it's a great one that you can pop down and come back to as well. So if you feel you've done one bit and you've had enough, you can pop it down and then come back to it another day or later on that day. And again, I'm just trying to make sure my stitches are roughly the same size. roughly the same spacing. And that pin's just holding it in place for me as well. Now you can see here my top thread, or the tail end, is a bit too long, so it's got caught through. So just pull that through and then just pull your needle a little bit further along the thread so you've got a shorter tail, so you can just carry on as normal. And if you find you've done the wrong stitch or you stitched the wrong way around, take your needle off, unpick that last stitch, rethread it, carry on as normal. The nice thing about homemade things as well, that they don't have to be perfect. If you're sort of sending this as a gift to someone, a friend or family member that maybe you can't see or that live far away, they're going to really appreciate the sentiment that you've made them something. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself, just have fun with it as well. I'm just going to push the needle a little bit, pin a little bit further in there so I've got enough space down here to do my next stitch. Okay, so I'm nearly done. And you can really have fun with your designs, the colours that you use as well. You can make them quite personal for sort of people. You know, if you found one that's, you could do one with someone's initial on and their favourite colours. If they're really into butterflies, you might want to try and do a butterfly on the front. You can really get quite individual with your designs. Okay, and you can see I'm just turning the heart round as I'm stitching the different sides of the L. Okay, that's our last stitch. So when you come to knot it up, poke it through the back and then flip your design over. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get your needle and you're going to go under one of your threads, your stitches that you've made. Pull it through till you've got a hole of thread left. Then you're going to go through the hole once, twice, and then you're going to pull that tight. And that creates a little knot on the back. Now if you're not sure, you can do it again and do a double knot. Excuse me, it's hay fever season. So there you go, I've made a loop, through the loop twice, pull tight, and you've made a little knot on the back. And then just snip that off and keep these bits, these odds and ends, because we can use them for something else as well. So I'll flip that back on and that L's all in place, and what we can do is take that pin out now. And then we can just put the heart on. So I'm going to put the heart here. Let's reuse that pin. Pin's actually great, it should stop it from moving around. And let's use a different colour thread this time. Let's use this kind of goldy colour. So again, it's a bit of a smaller shape, so I'm going to cut off a bit smaller length of embroidery thread. But exactly the same process. So go around your finger, roll it off the end, then pull that knot tight. Wet the end. Thread the eye of your needle and you can start stitching. Let's do a slightly different stitch on this one. So this one I'm going to do a simple kind of running stitch. I need to make my tail end a bit shorter. Which one is the tail? There we go. So with this one I'm going to do a running stitch. But what I do is I don't want gaps in between. So I'm going to do my first stitch. Then I'm going to come up, make sure that's in focus, a little bit further away from it. And then I'm going to go back into the hole that I've just done. Okay, so I'm going to take that pin out so you can see a bit clearer. So stitch a little bit far away, pull it through, and then go back in next to that design. This will get you a lovely running stitch but with no gaps. Okay, so just speed that up so I can get this done. And again, I'm trying to keep my stitch lengths the same sort of size, the same distance from the edge. Anything I can do to make it look a little bit more professional. And like I said, have fun with it. So just making a curve around the top here. And you can just keep checking it over from the back to check you're happy with it. And obviously this does use a little bit more thread than if you're just doing a normal running stitch, so I might have enough. If not, I'll show you how to just add another length. If you find it's lifting up, just use your thumb just to hold the felt down to stop it from kind of lifting up or shifting. This is a lovely activity as well to practice your stitching techniques. I will put some links up when I do the blog post to lots of decorative stitching that you can try. You can see on this one, if I bring that in the background whilst I'm stitching. In addition to doing some applique, like I'm doing here, I put on the flowers. I also use stitching in the background to kind of add the vines and the little flowers and things as well. And I think that's really nice to have a combination of the two. I think it looks really lovely. So you can see we're nearly finished. Now, if you find this bit a bit difficult, you can use an embroidery hoop. I've got one here on the go. Let me show you. You can use an embroidery hoop to do your stitch work first, but what you'll have to do, you'll have to stitch it on a bigger bit of fabric or felt first, then cut your shape out afterwards, okay? But if you find the holding the material on its own a bit tricky, try using one of these. They're quite handy, but you don't need one. You can see I'm doing mine without, so if you've not got one, don't panic. You can get by perfectly fine without it. So I'm nearly there, last couple of stitches. And we're trying to, you know, make do with stuff we might have lying around. If you're a crafty person, hopefully you've got, you know, lots of these things at home. Okay, so last stitch. So we're going to join that bit up to that bit there, like so. Flip it over. And then again, we're going to knot it off. So go under your stitches until you've made a loop. Go through the loop a couple of times and then pull it tight. If you want to make sure it's really tight, do another one. Don't worry if your back's a bit messy, you're not going to see it. It's going to be sort of hidden on the inside of your design. But do make sure your knots are tight, because what you don't want to do is it to come unravelled once it's all stitched together. Okay. Cut off your excess and then we've got our front design done. So now it's time to stitch it together. So this is when you need your front and your back together, and we're going to now stitch around to the edge. Okay, so I'm going to use this peachy colour again because I thought that looked quite nice. I'll just try to find the end. Where's it gone? Oh, it's all in a knot. There we go. So make sure you've got a nice long length. Cut it off. Knot it up. And thread with your needle. So you can do any kind of stitching you want around the edge. Oh, I've got a bit of a loose end there. Let's make sure that's all ravelled in. Yeah, you can do any kind of stitching you want. So you can see on this one here, I did kind of a continuous running stitch, which is what we did here. On this one here, we've done almost like a spiral stitch going round. And this one's called blanket stitch, which is where you do, you sort of do this, but you catch the thread up each time you go along. So you're going to want to leave a gap, and I'd recommend leaving a gap on a straight edge, because you're going to have to stuff it and fill it at some point. You also need to think about if you're putting a ribbon into it, now's the time to think that. So let's do that on this one. Let's put a bit of this ribbon in the top. So cut a nice length. That's going to want to go in the top of your design, like so. And again, we can use our pin just to secure it in place. Okay, so like I said, when we're stitching, we're going to have to leave a gap so we can stuff it, and you leave a gap on the straight edge. So we're going to stitch all the way around and leave a gap. Okay, so now start sewing it together. With the first stitch, you want the knot to be on the inside so you don't see it. So for that, come from the middle. Let's leave that here, from the middle. So the knot's going to be, oh, there we go, from the middle to the front. Ooh. Now this does happen with a longer bit of thread, don't panic, just take your time with it. Gently unravel it. Oh no, flies coming. Okay, and just tuck your knot down, like so. Okay, and then we can start stitching it together. Oh dear, a really knotty bit. Might just trim that end off. So there's a really noisy fly in here. Hopefully you can't hear it too loudly on there. I'm going to trim off that end bit because that's going to get knotted up, I can tell. Okay, let's make sure that's back in focus. Oh, sorry, just knocked the camera there. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to be doing the blanket stitch. So you make a loop like you normally would as if you were doing a spiral stitch. But before you pull it really tight, hook the needle back through that little loop that you've made. And you can see that creates this line along the edge as well. It's a bit fiddly to start, but once you've started, you're kind of off. And you see it kind of traps it each time you go. So make a loop. Oh, pulled that too tight. Just loosen that off. And before you pull it tight like I just did, go back through that loop. It just creates a really nice effect around the edge of your design as well. It's a bit more time consuming than just a simple sort of spiral stitch or blank or sort of chain stitch, but it does look prettier. So if you can master it, give it a go. And don't forget, you can always practice on 2 bits of your scrap felt first. You know, these are great for practicing on, just to check that you've got it before you kind of venture onto your real piece. Oh, let's put a big stitch there. Again, try and keep your stitches even, like I've just not done. You can see that one's a little bit big. It'll be fine for this demonstration. Now it does get tricky to do this round the ribbon that's here as well, so I think we can probably get one more in there. around the ribbon completely. And I'm sure there is a way to do it properly, but I don't know that. Oh, what have I done here? I've managed to tie it in a knot. That's clever, isn't it? Let's see if I can undo. There we go. So like I said, there's probably a way to do it, but I'm not entirely sure. So what I like to do is I kind of cheat. So I almost do so it looks like a blanket stitch, but it's not. So I just knocked the camera then. And I just do it from the front. I'm not really worried about what it looks like on the back quite so much. My thread, you can see my thread's getting awfully knotted up here, so don't worry if yours is doing that too. So again, you can see I'm just doing the stitches so it looks like it's blanket stitch. And like I said, there probably is a way to do this, and if you are a pro stitcher, you're probably looking at me thinking, what is she doing? But it's doing the job. It's going to look like it from the front, and that's all that I worry about really. And like I said, these aren't professional crafts, these are kind of nice home crafts that anyone can kind of have a go at. And I'm not here to kind of make you feel that you can't do it, so this is how I would do it, because I find doing the blanket stitch through this really tricky. So it's a nice little trick. So from the front it looks right, but we're kind of cheating a little. Oopsie daisy. Move that around. Okay, and once we've got kind of past the thread, you can see it doesn't look too messy from the back. We can carry on as normal. Oops, sorry, I keep knocking the camera today. I've got a new tripod, but I've had to attach it to a nearby chair. I'm making do at home with what I've got to hand. My thread's probably a little bit too long for this. I probably went a little bit overboard with how much I needed. So again, make your stitch, but before you pull it tight, go back through that loop and pull tight together. And you can see it doesn't take too long. It's not the quickest, but these are supposed to be, you know, nice, relaxed, enjoyable activities. You don't want to rush through them. Oops, drop my needle then. Okay, you don't want to pull too tight, you don't want to kind of distort your threads. And my spacing is not ideal on this one. I think I've got made these a little bit bigger towards the end just to kind of hurry up for the demonstration, but obviously you can really take your time with it. Make something truly beautiful. And obviously the longer you spend on them, the more time and consideration, the more beautiful they look. This little birdie up here, he obviously took a lot more time than maybe the simpler ones, but that shows in the detail and the design that's on there. It looks much more thought out and much more professional. So, you know, start simple, and the more confident you get, you know, the more elaborate your designs can get. And have a look online, you know, Pinterest and Google image search are a great resource for inspiration. If you want to make one but you don't really know what design to do, have a look online. See what's out there. There's so many examples. If you just type in embroidered felt decorations or folk inspired felt decor, anything like that, you're going to come up with lots of you know, examples and suggestions. And You might combine two different ideas as well. It's completely up to you. I always find the points a little bit tricky with blanket stitch. You don't want to pull it too tight. And we're just going to come around this corner, and then I'm going to stop for now. Excuse me, I haven't taken my antihistamine this morning, have I? Okay, so we're just going to stop there for now. I'm going to leave the needle and thread in situ. Take that pin out now, and you can see it's looking really lovely, but what we need to do is we need to stuff it. So I'm going to use some of the wadding, and what I like to do is to pull little bits off at a time. And what you're going to do is you've made like a little pocket here, and you can use your finger, or you might want to use the end of a pencil. And you want to start by getting all up into these corners up around here. And like I said, it's a great opportunity, rather than throwing them in the bin, to use up these little, odds and ends that you're not going to use. They're a bit too small to use, but we don't really want to add, just chuck them in the bin and waste them. So they can go in there. And also, if you've got little offcuts like this, which are a bit too small to do anything with, cut them up into really little small bits, so you don't really feel them. And they can go in there as well. We don't want to cause loads of waste here. But all of those can become your stuffing as well. And then we might do a little bit more stuffing in there. Now, if you're doing a scented one and you want it to smell nice, this is when you need your lavender. And you can see I've got some here. Now what I'll do, I've sprinkled that everywhere. Is take a pinch at a time and just pop it in there. So you can see it's kind of in there amongst my wadding and my other stuffing. And then just repeat the process. I'd recommend trying to get into all the corners first. And obviously on this heart, there's only really the top two curves, but depending on what your design is, you might want to kind of, say if you've done a star, you might want to get it into all the points of the star first. Pick up those lovely lavender. And these make then, if you have used lavender, they're really lovely to hang in your wardrobe because they smell beautiful as well. Okay, and then just keep repeating the process till it's nice and full. And it's up to you how stuffed you want it to be. Obviously, if you're making a pin cushion, you're going to want it really full. A bit of stuffing, a bit more lavender, odds and ends of kind of offcuts of threads and stuff. Like I said, a pencil's really good if you just want to help push it in there a bit more. Let's get some more lavender in there. Try and not spill it everywhere this time. Lavender's obviously really good as well, very calming, so if you hang it in the bed, it's going to be really peaceful and nice for kind of when you go off to sleep. And I'll put a few more in there. Pick that up. So use these little offcuts, save them going to waste. And if you've not got the wadding or you don't want to buy it, hair in there as well, it's always nice. You can just use, if you cut up scraps of fabric really small, they can be used as wadding as well. That length's long enough so I can use that for something, so you won't waste that. But this bit here is a bit too small to do anything with, so that can go in there. As long as it's small and soft, it's not going to ruin your design. So once you think it's full enough, give it a bit of a squish around. Kind of even out that wadding. Make sure you're happy with it. And then what you can do is carry on, as you were before, with your stitching, but now you're going to kind of seal up that hole. So I definitely had way too much thread on my needle. Let's move that out of the way. Always better to overestimate, really, than underestimate though. So like I said, I can reuse this for something else. And this is these activities, these sort of embroidery challenges are really good for using up those odds and ends of threads and material. because you don't need a lot, you know, to get this kind of design. You don't need a lot of thread or, you know, felt or material. So you can see I'm just pinching them together. Ooh, counted another little knot there. Okay, and I reckon one more. Now, I'm not a embroidery expert, but you can see that it wasn't tricky. Once I got started, it was pretty easy to do. Now, we just need to make a tiny little knot in this to secure it. So I'm going to go under that first loop that I made, and the same kind of knot that we normally do on the back or the inside. Pull that really tight. You can try and get the knot on the inside as well if you want to, but it's so small. Oops, sorry. You're not hugely going to notice it. I'll get used to this new tripod, I promise. Snip off your excess. And then what you can do, you can then just tuck that little knot sort of inside the felt or towards the back as well. Give it another squish, make sure all your wadding inside is evenly spaced. And there we go. We made a really lovely little decoration. And like I said, the possibilities are endless of what you could make. Have fun with it. Get creative. You know, make some lovely gifts for people, and have fun, and, you know, enjoy sewing. It's a really nice activity, and I'm sure along the way we'll be doing some more activities that have been inspired by the Great British Sewing Bee. But yeah, there we go. I hope you enjoyed that really lovely activity. If you have a go and you make some, please do share your results with us. We'd really love to see what you guys create. So there we go. Take care, guys, and we'll see you soon. Okay then, bye.